Hi, my name is Kevin Pham, and I'll be presenting you my notebook for machine learning for engineers as for the final project. My overall goal for this notebook is to develop a classification model to predict quality of white wine. So first, what I had to do was I had to pip install all the libraries. This included the PyCurve, which I used to help build my machine learning pipeline. So first, I had to iterate through the, um, the pip install. I had to run the PyCurve twice to make sure that it deletes and reinstalls all the libraries it requires and the correct versions it needs. Then I imported PyCrit and checked the version to see what version I'm going to be dealing with. Secondly, I then decided to load up the PyCrit dataset to access my wine dataset. Additionally, I had to filter out the wine dataset so that I'm only training the model based on the white wine data instead of red. And then I dropped um any any data that contain red wine. Once I've done that, I then also drop the type column as it is not needed as single um single data point used to train the model will be white wine. Then I decided to help create my pipeline. First, determined the setup for the white wine. Found that there is 4,898 inputs with 12 um, different columns. And given that this is a multi-class based as it is a assessment um, quality assessment model. Next, I performed the classification experiment, and I wanted to see what type is the classification experiment is. Afterwards, I then actually imported the data, which is the white wine, and then the corresponding quality. I did put a session ID, but that is redundant as it does not contribute to the actual response. After when I process all the information, I then compared all the models. I have found that the random forest classifier had overall performed the best as it had the best accuracy, recall, precision, F1 measure, kappa, and the MCC algorithm results. However, the extra tree classifier had a better area under the curve. However, overall, the random forest classifier performed the best, and I decided to use this model. After I then repeated it based on the different functions, but I did get the same results. Additionally, I did I then plotted the confusion matrix. I did find out there's a lot of true answers. However, as I kept on going down, there's the values got um was misclassified as shown over here. There are values where it was misclassified. And then I showed the region of convergence or area under the curve to help determine the false positive rate versus the true positive rate. Then I found the feature importance and I found that the alcohol feature was the most important feature next with density. Afterwards, then I decided to do help plot model to see any additional portions I need to do or any different values I can find. I then also decided to evaluate my model based on the random forest classifier as that was the best model. And then I did a prediction and I found that they had an accuracy of about 69.93%. And then this is me just rerunning the the data set and finding their prediction score. Finally, I then continued to redo that and drop the quality to make it as a blind prediction. And then I found that it had when I retrained when I sent the values into the prediction, I found these prediction scores. Finally, I saved the model as my first fight pipeline to help and then to help understand the characteristics of the random forest classifier. I then loaded it up to ensure that my model was able to be opened using PyCred. Additionally, I did do the Gradio portion. Um, the the app upload. I will show you that onto the I will show you in a second. But here is some of the code. I had to readjust the code based on the actual input based on Hugging Face, so I can as there's compatibility issues. So here is my white wine quality predictor, which is trained on Hugging Face space. So basically what I did, I copied the setup that I obtained from my random forest classifier based on the PyCred pipeline. And then I had various inputs. So if I just put everything as 0 and insert the value, they will give me a value of this, value of 5. But however, when I actually provide inputs, let's say 3, 4, 2, like all these random values, as they keep on going, as it's 5, 3, 2, I'd press submit, and then I got a value of 4. And this is the predicted value based on these parameters, which is fixed acidity, volatile acidity, citric acid, residual sugar, chlorides, free sulfur dioxide, total sulfur dioxide, density, pH, sulfates, and alcohol. So thank you for listening to my presentation, and I will send you the Hugging Face space along with the GitHub repository.